Morning all, respected chairperson, Professor Sir. I am very honored and very happy, and this topic is very favorite for me, that we are progressing a lot, but what is happening to our patient, we are not looking after that part. So my talk will take you to another dimension of medical advancement, and there will be hardly any experiment results or anything, but the reality what we face in day to day life, that will be my that is the basis of my talk. So I will start from I will take you to the most ancient time of medical history, and before that I just want to say one thing, that medical science today is the clutch of technology. As soon as you change the clutch, technology will change. And that's what the Hippocrates says, that even if you have discovered something, after some time you will deceive yourself and you will not be able to believe. So whatever we are discovering today, maybe after 10 years, nobody will believe it. Nobody can, and junior residents cannot believe that I have given anesthesia with open ether, because this era has gone back, and after 10 years nobody will be able to recognize and understand the name of ether. So this is the way fast we are changing our technology. And in order to develop the science, we have to push the art of some medicine. We have pushed the art of medicine to the dark corner. And if we really want to take care of our patient as a whole, we have to balance the art of medicine as well as the science of medicine. So I'll take you to the most ancient time evidence of medical science. And the most ancient time evidence of medical science says that most ancient practitioners were women. This is not because I am a woman I am telling this. This is not gender biased. This was told in 1903 by a novelist, that is Nathan and Davis, and he has discovered that most ancient practitioners were women. And the medicine started with Egyptian mythology and with Hindu mythology, with the story of Satyavan and Savitri, where Satyavan died and Savitri gave him by her willpower and by her strong emotional attachment to her husband, loyalty towards her husband, she gave the life to her husband. So the medicine started from this. And similarly with Egyptian mythology, the story is similar like this. And then the first surgical intervention was the era of trepanation, where they used to make the burr hole in the skull, and they used to think that they will be able to treat almost all the disease. And this is the famous painting from a Dutch painter. It is in the Spain. And what they are doing, they are trying to remove the stone from the skull, and they are trying to treat the psychiatric illness through this procedure. And then first time John Hunter came, and he has given some logic to the surgery, and he has introduced new surgical techniques like aneurysm, ligature, Achilles tendon repair, etc. And this the slide which say the whole journey of our discovery. From 10,000 BC, we used to have a witch doctors, and then came the trepanation, then sutures, and then eyeglasses, smallpox vaccination, and we have reached to an era of MRI in 1977. This is the whole spectrum of discovery what we have done in the past. Now, what about the cancer progress? This was a novelist again by Clifford Epicure. He has in a medical book he has written. From medical book title was From Witch Doctors to Robotic Surgeons, and the theme of that, the essence and the message of that book was, the progress in cancer has been amazing. Some have gone from quickly fatal to highly manageable, and the number of cancers we can cautiously call curable is growing very fast. But then came from philosophy to evidence-based era, 2 decades back. And this was a paper from the Canadian Medical Association 20 years back. And first time they have said that evidence-based era paper, they have come. And the essence of this paper was that the idea that medical intervention and health services should be evaluated and selected on the basis of most reliable evidence available for their effectiveness. This was they have said. But then came the paradigm shift. They said that evidence-based medicine will make a paradigm shift in the medical science. Whether this has really happened, this was the argument against by many of the papers. They have given argument against evidence-based medicine. I am not against the research, I am not against the evidence-based medicine, but there are the few points which we should really take care of before following any guidelines or before following the message from evidence-based papers. That information based on RCT, how relevant they are. For example, in a cancer patient, if you will say that 5-year survival for 10%, 5-year survival 20% patient, or 2-year survival 1% patient, or 2 years patient, how a physician will make the clinical judgment on the basis of this information. This we should really take care. Then in this evidence-based medicine, there is no scope or no space for homeopathic, Ayurveda and acupuncture, which gives us good results in medical science. And then there is no scope and there is no place for physician clinical experience, that we all know that our clinical experience can make a lot of difference. So evidence-based medicine is a good way of practice, but these are the few important points which are against it and which has been published in many of the papers. And there is no quality guideline on quality versus quantity of life. The evidence-based medicine will say that we will improve the quantity of life for 2 years for this much per time for 10% patients or 2% patients, but whether quality we are improving, this evidence-based medicine will not be able to say. So the progress of therapeutic in cancer, whether it is worthwhile, definitely it is worthwhile. I am not denying this because you are listening since last 3-4 days, but the progress has happened in immunology, molecular biology. Many new molecules have come and they are acting well in various types of cancer. Then came the nanotechnology era, and then came the robotic. Robotic has replaced full experienced surgeon. There is no place to sit for a good surgeon inside the OT if you are doing robotic surgery. So robotic era came. So then finally, what has happened with all these advancement? Definitely there is a positive side of it. The cancer going incurable to curable. We all know that there are many cancers which are curable now. Less invasive surgeries, increased life expectancy, and 5-year survival rate is increasing. Emerging pain management modality is giving good quality of life in post-operative and chronic pain patients, and there is a better drug profile. But what are the negative aspect of it? Increased life expectancy and the cost of growing complications and growing recurrence rates. Increased life expectancy with new complication with the highest technological advancement like ventilators, dialysis machine, cardiopulmonary resuscitators. Definitely they are good for the patient, but we have to balance that where these are useful. Otherwise, what we are doing, we are creating new drug-resistant flora. The world over, people are discussing. It's a big debatable topic that what to do and how to handle this problem of drug-resistant flora. And then came the better drug, like molecules we talk, but it's on the cost of growing cost. Whether really a normal and common man can afford it, it's not possible. And then the further negative aspect is worsen quality of life. We all know that if a person who is keep on giving chemotherapy or any other therapy, quality of life really worse. And then we have started talking end-of-life care issues, which we never used to talk before. And end-of-life care issues, recently we are talking, but we are not doing anything in a balancing way. Because we talk about end-of-life care issues, but we don't do anything to balance it, that quality versus good death. So these are the negative aspects. And the major loss which I feel is a loss of confidence of a common patient on the medical society. The person don't know that whether I should really take this molecule or not, how much percentage, whether I will fall into the 10% group or in a 90% group. So there is no confidence and there is great loss of faith on the health facility. This is the biggest loss which we are creating with technological and advancement. And increased cost of burden to the family. Many a times, if we keep on offering new molecules, the family keep on investing money, and finally what we achieve, we all know about the end results, and ultimately there is no positive outcome. So the famous, again, the Hippocrates included in a promise that not to treat a patient who were overmastered by their disease. So this is what I want to say in my lecture, that definitely technological advancement is good. We should definitely apply it to a certain group of patient, but a person if is overmastered by the disease, we should definitely sit down and relax and think of twice before offering any advanced therapy to that patient. And this is what is a very favorite slide of mine, that if in this hall I ask you that where you want to die at the end, everybody, whether you want to die in ICU, whether you want to die in hospital, whether you want to die in hospice, and how many of you want to die at home with loved one? Raise your hands. So see, everybody wants to die at home with loved ones. And what we are doing? All our 90 patients are dying in the hospital. This is the real truth of our life. And why this is happening? Because of the technological advancement. We have created ventilators, we have created monitors, we have created new drugs that keep on prolonging life of our loved one, and ultimately this is what we are giving to our patient. In spite of knowing many a times that this person is not going to survive, we create this situation for our loved one. So this is a bitter truth of advancement in technology. Now, this is also truth that we should follow the medical ethics. We should follow the principle of medical ethics whenever we are practicing as a doctor, because we have taken an oath. But growing technology at the cost of lacking ethical principle is not correct. We are not bothered about autonomy of our patient. We are not bothered when we are practicing that whether whatever we are doing, whether this is going to do good for my patient, whether I am harming my patient by doing anything, by applying any medical advancement, and finally whether I am doing justice to the resources utilized for my patient. So this is very important to understand at this point, that being a doctor, being a nurse, it is very important to follow the principle of medical ethics, but whether technological advancement are pressurizing us to not to follow the medical ethics, whether it is happening in our day-to-day practice, this is very important to understand at this point. Now what is the possible answer? I have created a lot of problem in front of you, that all medical advancement, definitely I am not against any research, please believe me, but I am also believer of giving a balanced therapy to my patient. And the possible answer as a palliative care physician, answer is palliative care. Now what palliative care? What is the philosophy of palliative care? The task of medicine is to care even when we cannot cure the patient. So when we cannot cure the patient, we are committed to the patient to care till the end. And this is what, to reduce the violence of the disease. Violence means disease is making lot of violence, patient is having pain, patient is breathless, is having ascites. We are committed to treat all these symptoms without curing the underlying disease. When this situation comes, why we keep on trying to cure the underlying disease? Why can't we just concentrate on the symptoms? This is what I want to say, and this is what I want to give the solution for the problem. And this is the best spectrum we should follow, that we should have a technological and diagnostic and therapeutic strategies till the time in the beginning. Slowly we should start reducing our therapeutic strategies and diagnostic strategies, definitely. And a stage comes when we should stop all diagnostic and therapeutic strategies, and we should start taking care of our patient as a good end-of-life care. We should not desert our patient. We are not going to desert them, but we will give them a good quality of life. And this is the best way of practicing a whole journey of a diseased patient, that we should apply all the technological advancement from the beginning, all the diagnostic tool, giving less palliative care, and slowly as the disease progresses, we must start reducing all the advanced therapies and start giving more concentrated palliative care, symptom care, and end of life care. And this palliative care branch not only see the patient when they are dying, this is the only stream in the medical science which give emphasis on bereavement care also. There is not a single medical subject where we are giving importance to bereavement care. So this is the only science which will give emphasis on bereavement care. Although there are no good research, there are various research are happening in area of palliative medicine, but definitely not in the technological advancement. So this is the positive outcome of a patient when we give a balanced and holistic care, that family, we meet with the family, there is a better understanding of diagnosis and prognosis, we give informed choice to our patient and their family member, and finally there is a better patient and physician relationship. When you do honest communication, when you will give a realistic hope to your patient, definitely patient will be yours and there will be a development, there will be a close bonding between you and patient. But when you will offer a highly advanced molecule, which you also know that they are not going to help to the patient, and finally if patient will feel, what patient and family members will feel, we can't even imagine how they feel when they become financially burdened and finally they lost their loved one. So this is the best model when you cannot cure the disease. So this is just last few slides, that these are the situational analysis world over. The chronic illness have become a modern epidemic. Still in America also, in world over, this was basically from US, but world over, only 30% of the patients have some sort of palliative care program. Despite the establishment of hospice and home care, 53% patients die in the hospital, even in the developed world. Heart failure and end-stage respiratory diseases are the most common cause of death in hospitalized patients, representing a significant population, and this has become a biggest economic burden on the healthcare system in the developed country. Now we come to the Asia. This is the recent atlas, global atlas of palliative care in 2014. They have given a good picture or analysis of regarding Asia, that Asia has the greatest discrepancy in terms of need of palliative care services and opioid for pain relief. 50 to 70% of new liver, esophageal, stomach, lung and breast cancer worldwide are occurring in Asia. And in Asia, 70 to 80% patients are presenting in their advanced stage, where their realistic treatment option are pain and palliative care. There is no molecule will work on them. Unrelieved pain and other symptoms decreases their quality of life and places a burden on family, economy and healthcare system. And there is a strong need of palliative care in Asian this thing. Now what about India? Because we are from India, and now this is the Indian situation. Current population of India is 1.28 billion. This is the old slide, 1.28 billion. Cancer and non-communicable diseases emerged as a major public health problem, and need for palliative care is immense. Approximately 2.4 million people have cancer in India, and 2/3 of them is still present in advanced stage. Unrelieved pain and symptoms worse their quality of life, and they alone does not suffer, even the whole family members are suffer, and they become a big economic burden on the family members' life and on the healthcare system. And this is the situation in India, that only 0.4% patients are still getting pain and palliative care. So rest all, whatever advancement are happening all over India. Everywhere in a cancer center, in the remotest place, they will definitely use molecules, they will definitely use fentanyl patch, but the cheapest drug are not available, and pain and palliative care is not reaching to the remote places of India. And this is again very good data which reported by Economist Intelligence Unit commissioned by Leon Foundation in 2012. This is 2002, first in 2002, that India ranked the lowest about the end of life care, 40 out of 40 in end of life care, and quality of death index is poorest in India. And in 2015, when they have, again the same group have they have said that India is on the 60th position out of 80 countries. Although we have gone up, but that time they have only analyzed 40 countries and we were the lowest. And when they have analyzed 80 countries, we are ranking 60th position. So we can imagine the end of life care is very, very poor in our poor country, and we are definitely offering to our patient the expensive medication, but the cheapest medication which can give death with dignity, we are not offering to our patient. So there is an overwhelming need of palliative care initiative in India. Now, why this is happening in India? Why there is a poor Indian scenario? Why we are 40 out of 40 and 60th position? Because concept of autonomy is weak. Our patient cannot decide of their own treatment. Either family member decide or doctor decide. Physician orientation by his or her training is only to cure. Not a single classes is there for comfort care. We take lot of classes on curative care. So in our undergraduate and teaching curriculum, nobody is teaching to give comfort to our patient. Relative and physician do not leave faith on medical advancement. This is not only the doctor's problem. Even the relatives and family people, they keep on asking something should be done for my patient. And when you will not give honest opinion and you will offer some drug or molecule, they will sell off their property and they will buy that molecule for that patient. So this is again your responsibility to give the realistic hope and honest opinion. Then the biggest problem in corporate sector is perceived lack of legal backing and fear of litigation amongst medical practitioners. This remains the biggest problem because they don't know whether I should really resuscitate my patient or not. Otherwise, I will be fighting the legal battle. So there is no legal backing for us. And there is a clear regulatory requirement from the government or other bodies like National Body of Accreditation of Hospital, NABH, now they are trying to create guidelines for end-of-life care. Otherwise, there was no guidelines even by NABH, that is national biggest body for country for making guidelines, that is National Board of Accreditation of Hospitals. So this is what I have said. But now we have also progressed in an area of palliative medicine. This is just a slide which says that 1980 only few pain clinics were there for chronic pain. In 1986, first hospice was formed by Shanti Vedna Sadan. In 1990s, doctor and sisters, they are started going to UK to train palliative medicine. In 1994, first time Indian Association of Palliative Care was formed in Varanasi. And the biggest milestone is in 2012 when we have started MCI has recognized palliative medicine as a separate specialty, and we have started palliative medicine in 2012. So there are 135 palliative care centers all over country. There are 350 cancer hospitals where the cancer machines, some or the other therapy machine, radiotherapy machines are there. And out of 358, only 135 centers are giving palliative care and pain management. Rest all, imagine in all hospitals, people must be coming in pain. They must be coming with the severe discomfort. And in the poor states and in the poor people, they must be reaching there. We are offering all sort of advancement, but we are not offering palliative care. So already less than half of the centers are getting palliative care. There are a good palliative care program all over country. This is the list. These are the national achievement that Indian government has recognized palliative care and cancer pain as an integral to the advancement of comprehensive cancer care and going to treat them as they have recognized that this is a major public health problem, and they have introduced it in the 12th five-year plan and integrated in the healthcare system. Morphine sulfate first time in 2011 has become the essential medication in the essential list, national list of medicine by Government of India, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And recently, just 2 weeks back, Ministry has recognized pain management as a basic human right, and they want to start pain as a 5th vital sign all over the country. And in AIMS, in this center, we have dedicated palliative care program and pain-free. Our IRCH is pain-free. And I want to acknowledge at this point that Professor Rath has given a lot of support in creating a good palliative care program in this hospital. Thank you, sir, for giving us support. And we have started palliative medicine at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And this is the last achievement that Indian Association of Palliative Care and Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine has come out with a joint statement for end-of-life care policy. You must read this paper so that you will realize that there is a good position statement and you have a solid background for not to resuscitate and not to do any aggressive measure for your patient, and this will give you an integrated care plan for patients who are dying. So take home messages. Growing technology in therapeutics comes with the increased life expectancy, but at the cost of poor quality of life and increased cost. Good palliative care and end-of-life care are not just the alternative, but also the superior and most appropriate mode of treatment. The ambiguous legal position on withholding and withdrawing life-sustaining treatment at the end of life should not deter physicians from providing the best ethical care to their patient. Although there is no legal background, but if you will explain to your patient and explain in their own language, come to their own terms and explain to them, sit down with them and give them proper time, they will understand. There will be no legal hassle. If they will explain, they will understand what you want to say. Our patients are quite brave. They understand what we say, only thing we don't explain them properly. Specific guidelines for do not resuscitate. This is the future directive should be there. And withhold and withdrawing treatment. There should be some specific guidelines which we have already formulated with the World Health Organization for comfort care in various aspects. There should be a balancing attitude of technological advancements versus quality of life. Technological advancement is really good. We have listened all these lectures that definitely survival is increasing, but we must not forget that it should not be at the cost of quality of life and the cost. And this is very important slide, that we should not forget to give holistic care to our patient. Doctors either taking care of kidney, some doctors are taking care of heart, some doctors are taking care of eye, but patient is ultimately a human being, so he needs a human touch, he needs an humanity. Although there are no good papers on this, but we have written an editorial, and it was very popularized editorial, and this editorial popularized very well, and this is a 100% cost free, and it's a wonder drug for our patient. Thank you very much.
Excellent lecture.